school board trustees, for hosting us here. I'm Councilmember Candelas. I'm your council member, and I represent this area at City Hall, and I think it's really important to have this conversation this evening, for the future of Pleasant Hills. And when I took office in January, I made a commitment to ensure that I put the community's interests first, and doing this community engagement as an opportunity to hear directly from folks on issues that matter to you on this development is important. I see Derek Grassi, Mount Pleasant trustee here. Thank you, Derek, for being here. Tonight, we're also joined by city planning staff, Deputy Planning Director Michael Brelio. Michael's going to be giving our presentation today. And I see Jared Ferguson, who's also planning staff, who's going to be the lead on this project for the community. I want to talk about why we're here. I want to emphasize the vital role of our community input in shaping the future of what happens here. My main goal is to inform and engage our residents and our community to be at the forefront of this entire vision. That's why back in April, I successfully passed direction to the city council and to the city staff to ensure that this process puts the community first. And I think we have some memos, the memorandum that states this process for folks to read for those of you who are interested. I want you to all feel like your voice is heard and you fully understand the process and be equipped to engage in a way that produces the right vision for this area. I know that many of you have valid concerns that will be brought up, and I don't want those concerns to be drowned by outside interests. You won't get everything you want, but it is our collective wisdom that can provide insights and ideas that might not be apparent to folks who are thinking about developing or are city planners. We understand the intricacies of our community's needs that can help tailor this to meet those needs effectively. That is why we're here. For the community to have the first seat at the table and to understand what will happen here over the next year as we discuss this vision and lay out our guiding principles for this potential development. Your input could lead to innovative, sustainable, and resilient solutions. By sharing our ideas and concerns, we can help shape a vision that considers environmental, social, and economic factors. This ensures that whatever is proposed not only benefits us today, but also a positive legacy for future generations. We encourage everyone to participate in these meetings, workshops, and discussions over the next year and beyond. Let's work together to ensure that you are engaged and that this serves our community's best interests. We must engage actively and thoughtfully in this process to enhance the place we call home. We will do questions at the end, and if you don't want to share your question publicly or comment publicly, we have a QR code that you can use to scan and share your feedback with us directly and anonymously if you choose. Thank you for being here with us tonight once again. My staff's going to be taking diligent notes and recording the meeting as well. We'll put it online. I look forward to listening and engaging with all of you this evening. I know I saw somebody from the mayor's staff. Is Vince Rocha? Oh yeah, Vince Rocha from the mayor's office and Christian Cornejo from Mayor Mahan's office are here as well, since we're going to be working on this collectively. So that being said, I'm going to kick it off to Michael Brelio of our planning staff to kick off his presentation, and then we'll go into Q&A.
Hey everybody, welcome on this beautiful fall evening. My name is Michael Brio. I oversee long-range planning for the city of San Jose, so I'm glad to be here tonight. This is the first of probably a number of community meetings we'll have on this topic. So I'll just give you a little background on the site, on this area, and I'm not going to get into a lot of this. Is very planning, technical, wonky stuff, but this part of town, Evergreen, and this neighborhood is kind of unique in that I would say it's a giant cul-de-sac, right? So there's not many roads in and out of this area. There's really only 2 roads that get you to the freeway. And it's mainly where people live. They don't generally work in this area. So what that means, and I'm just telling you probably what you should be telling me this because you live this stuff. It means that in the morning it's very hard often to get out to the freeway, and in the evening to get home it's very hard to get back in the neighborhood. And that has a lot to do with the way suburban communities were laid out after World War II. They put all the uses very separate from each other. Housing goes here, jobs goes way over there, and we just have a few roads to get you anywhere. which is very different than if you go to downtown San Jose, where I live. It's much denser, but there's less traffic. And there's a reasons because they built cities differently back then. So there's been a policy that dates back to 1974 that regulated new development in this area, how much could occur and whatnot, and really looked at the improvements that were needed to happen, particularly transportation and roadway improvements that needed to happen as the area developed. And and that policy has been updated over the years. It actually technically still exists. It's in the process of being retired. I'll talk about that in a second. But that capacity for new development has essentially run out in that policy. And it regulates all types of development, commercial, residential, and industrial. The commercial or employment, residential, commercial, industrial type uses aren't really that much of a problem, right? Because if you have more jobs in this area, people could maybe get to work and they don't have to drive out of the area to get to work, or people come in and reverse commute. It's really the housing that's created more of a challenge because people tend to exit the area in the morning to go to work. So, but that being said, we're essentially at a point where we're out of capacity in that. And then the other thing that has happened is that a state law was passed that changed how we analyze transportation impacts. And this, not getting too technical on you, but the way it used to be measured is, does new development cause backup at an intersection? Does it add delay? The new way we analyze transportation impacts, which is coming from the state, is does development produce more driving? Does it induce more driving? Not does it create more congestion? Does it create more driving? So that's really driven a change, and that policy was approved by council back in 2018 that reflected that state change. And it's replaced the evergreen policy that exists now in terms of determining how development happens and what it needs to do to reduce what's called environmental impacts, including transportation impacts. So it's a whole new world right now. And that's, yeah, so next slide. So some backgrounds on the site we're considering. So we're gonna be talking about tonight. So Pleasant Hill Golf Course, you probably are all more familiar than I am, but it's about 114 acre site. It's a golf course that closed 20 years ago. Last time I checked, they were grazing cattle on there.
Yes, we love those cows.
Yeah, they're grazing cattle. And it's actually a site within the county. It's not within the city. That being said, it's per the agreement. The way this stuff works is it's within the city's sphere of influence. So the city's general plan dictates how that property can be redeveloped. So it's really in the jurisdiction of the city to have this conversation to figure out what can happen on that site, not in the counties. Because when the site does redevelop into something, it becomes part of San Jose. Did I get everything up there? Oh, so what I should mention is, for this site to redevelop, it does need a general plan amendment. The site is currently designated for private open space, which a golf course is private open space, private recreation open space. So the developer is interested in building housing there. And so to do that, it needs a general plan change. And they did apply for a general plan change, which is essentially why we're here tonight. Next slide. So there's the location. I think you're all aware of where it is. It's essentially east of White Road and Lake Cunningham. Very big site. Next slide. So council has given us some direction on this, what we're talking about tonight and where we go. So there were essentially some amendments made to all these policies I'm talking about to allow this conversation to happen. I'll leave it at that. But when that was done, direction was given that the city conduct a city hybrid developer-led community engagement process to have a conversation about, well, if the site is going to redevelop, what should go there? What should it look like? How is it all going to work? And the engagement should be include community meetings, hybrid, surveys, workshops, all kinds of a wide breadth of engagement. So make sure we reach out and connect with everybody who's interested in having this conversation. They also told us that this work that we're about to embark on should be done by this summer. So it was important to figure this out pretty quickly, so the council has a sense of direction of where we're heading.
Your slide says next summer.
Summer 2024.
Yeah, that's next summer, not this summer.
Oh, I'm sorry, this summer's passed. I'm
Yes,
thinking-
it is.
Yeah, I'm thinking, sorry, next summer, thank you. Okay, next slide. So what are we going to be doing? So the general idea is to create guiding principles for the potential redevelopment of the golf course. And those, so what we are not doing is we're not doing a specific plan or an actual plan that shows, okay, houses go here, the roads go exactly there, the parks can go right there. It's more sort of guiding principles that sort of say this is what development should achieve if it's going to happen here. Here's generally kind of what it should look like. And the point of this is to inform the project proposal. So the other thing that's happening is the developer, kind of in parallel with this process, is going to be developing their project. So it's going to kind of be circular. So they're going to be seeing what's going on at the community meeting, kind of reflecting on that, seeing how they might shape their project. We anticipate they'll probably come in as part of this process and share what their concepts are, get feedback on that. So it'll probably be a bit of an iterative process. But the idea is they're going to be developing they don't have a project yet. They're going to be, as part of this process, they're going to be developing their project. And ultimately what this would do is it would inform staff's recommendation on a proposal that goes to Planning Commission and Council. And it's intended to inform the council's deliberation and consideration and decision on what to approve on the site. So that's the intended outcome. Next slide. And so the scope of some of the things that we'd be talking about are what are the kind of amenities that the community would like to see? And obviously that includes things like park space, maybe trails. It could include things like, oh, it'd be great to have somewhere where we could gather as neighbors, maybe a coffee shop or some space like that. Now, mind you, it's for the people that may end up living here someday, but it also is this conversation about what would the amenities that the people who live here now would like to see, that they could take advantage of. The other sort of big one is circulation improvement. So on many levels. So there's just like, what is the circulation generally going to look like within the development conceptually? Not specifically, we're not going to lay out streets, but conceptually. How would it connect to the surrounding neighborhoods? And then kind of what are the, we're going to hire a transportation consultant. So they're going to talk about what conceptually are the kind of improvements we need to be thinking about down the road around this area. And some of them the development might pay for. And some of them may be just larger things that the city needs to work towards. So keep in mind, we're really focused on the Pleasant Hill Golf Course, but there are other potential sites out there that could redevelop in 10 years or so. So I think you've heard the county, at least now, is still intending to close the Reed Hillview Airport. When they close that airport, not only is that site available, that opens up a whole bunch more land around Eastridge Mall, including the mall for redevelopment, because right now they can't do a lot because airplanes every once in a while land on the roofs or in the parking lot, right?
Yeah.
Okay, whatever. But the point is, there's all these rules that you can't. There's these rules that you can't use the land for very much because of the flight path. There's what's called a airport land use compatibility plan, and you have to. There's rules about what you can do. You can't do a lot with that land. So if the county moves forward with that, that opens up a whole other conversation about, well, what about the larger area? That conversation is not part of this, it's a ways off. But as we're talking about this, we do need to think about, are there some larger moves that should be thought about and kept in mind in the context of this and possibly other sites redevelopment. So there's that. And then the other is land use and urban design. So for those of you who aren't familiar with urban design is like architecture for a city, right? Architects design buildings, urban design is they design cities or neighborhoods. So first, what land uses, what are the type of land uses that belong here? Where generally, what would that look like? Could be densities of houses. Is it, townhomes, traditional single-family homes, small apartments, or a mix of all those things? Maybe is there some, as I talked about, some areas for commercial, for neighborhood serving uses, for example. And then the design, what should the character look like? What should the area feel like in the future? Should it have a certain character and a certain look and feel? This will be conceptual. Again, we're not designing this project. That's up for the developer to do. But this conversation and this feedback will help them develop their proposal. They'll consider that as part of their work. So, and then the other thing that is affordable housing. So we have a great need, I think, as many are aware, for affordable housing in the Bay Area generally, definitely in San Jose and Silicon Valley. And the direction we got from council is that there needs to be a significant amount of affordable housing. More specifically, what the city has is an inclusionary housing ordinance that requires that 15% of the housing units be affordable. Now, it's a little more complicated than that. There's other things you can do. You can write a check, you can provide land. But what the council said in this case, the affordable housing units need to be provided as part of the development, and the project should provide more than the 15%. There was no conversation or direction about, well, how much more, but that's something that needs to be sort of figured out, some direction on that. Next slide. So the outreach. So the outreach that we have now is, well, we're really planning for 3 community meetings on this process, with potentially for a 4th. The developer, as I mentioned, would be integrated into this process, so they have an opportunity. He's going to share the concepts as they're developing. We are hiring, Jared and his team will be the lead on this project. We do have a consultant selected that will be facilitating the workshops and the development of these guiding principles with your all input, the community's input. I think what's really important, we got direction of council on this, is that we have engagement in multiple languages. So far what we're seeing is English, Spanish, and Vietnamese. If there are others you think that we need to include, let us know. But we want to make sure that we hear us from as many as people who want to be heard from, not just the people that we usually hear from, but the groups that are often not at the table because there could be a language or other barrier. So we're really trying to strive for that. And then as part of this process, we're also seeking out, we haven't selected one yet, is a community-based organization that's based in San Jose that has deeper ties in the community than us staff do, and the consultant that can help us reach out to those communities. So some of the other things, the requirements of development, this is coming from the council last year before a council member was in office, was to exceed parkland dedication. So basically to exceed the city's park requirements. That's another one, right? So just do what you have to do more. Construct multimodal transportation improvements that mitigate the impacts to the greatest extent possible. So that's related to CEQA. So because this area is an area of driving, there's going to likely be a lot of transportation improvements that are going to have to result from this development. They will be building many of those, and then they'll have to pay fees for the stuff that they can't, from a CEQA point of view, mitigate. And that's.
What does that mean?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Have no
You
idea
said a
what
lot of
you're
words
talking
and I
about.
don't understand any of
Yeah, I
them.
mean, it's some that they're going to have to be contributing to either building and
What does
paying money for
multimodal
transportation.
transportation mean?
Huh?
What does multimodal transportation mean?
It's cars, bicycles, transit, walking, scooters,
Okay, thank
bus,
you.
everything. Yeah. So, and then the other thing that is the council gave us direction on is that the developer has to fund a fiscal analysis of the development. So the proposed development, what does that mean for the city fiscally in terms of providing service? It could be net positive. We could actually gain money from this development. It could be neutral. It could be negative. But the idea is to look at, if this site is redeveloped, what is the monetary or fiscal impact of the city, because it's going to have to provide services. That's just information for the council to consider as they deliberate. Next slide. So the schedule is the first community meeting is December, January. It's probably going to be January, but that's the timeline we're looking at. Second community meeting, April, May. Third community meeting, June. Fourth community meeting is really TBD. So we have that budgeted. We have that in the scope for the consultant, so it's there if we need it. And then the idea is that we go to council with whatever comes out of this process in August of 2024, and then council would accept the recommendations of this process. Next slide. So there's a lot of things that are going to happen. It's all being packaged together. Now, the developer applied for a general plan amendment, but as part of this process, when they go to council, they have to have a general plan amendment, they have to have a rezoning, they have to have a site permit that says this is exactly what we're going to do here, and this is where the streets go, and blah, blah, blah. It has to be annexed in to the city as part of this process. There's going to be an environmental impact report. And again, all of this will be considered by the Planning Commission and City Council. Next slide. So the question is, well, when is development going to happen? And the short answer is, we really don't know. But we anticipate that this project will be developed in parallel with this process, and that the proposal would be complete at some point after, maybe soon after the process is done. We're not sure. And again, this is intended to inform the proposal that's being developed. There will be what's called an EIR scoping meeting, and that's a meeting where staff and the developer and the developer's consultant come out and talk about, well, what are the environmental things that you would like us to analyze in the EIR? What are the things we should be looking at? And that meeting isn't set up yet, it's TBD, but it will be sometime in the first part of next year, most likely. So that's separate from the community meetings I talked about. And then the project itself, when will it go to council? Not these guiding principles that we're talking about with you, but the actual proposal. That's TBD also, but probably wouldn't go before, probably would go in 2025 at the earliest. But we'll see. So it's going to be a while. And then the question is, when would this project be built? We don't know. I mean, the developer's here. He might comment on this or correct me if I said there's something wrong, but it may be 4 or 5 years before the ground breaks. And when it does happen, this is a huge site. It's one of the largest development sites we've had in 10 or 15 years in San Jose. So it doesn't get built in a day, usually phase it in over time. So maybe a number of years before it becomes built out. Yeah.